Today on our 2015 Ford F350 Super Duty, we're going to be taking a look at and also showing you how to install the Firestone Air Command 1. This is an analog gauge heavy-duty compressor with single function, offering up to 150 psi. Part number is F2097. Here's what our compressor kit's going to look like when we pull it out of our box. Here's the heart of our system. This is our nice heavy-duty compressor. You can really feel how good of a compressor that this is. We've got our outlets, we've got our filter tube here, and basically it's just going to use these rubber isolators here with brass bushings inside to connect. Now typically you're going to connect that down to your frame, but in our case today, one of the really nice things that I like is basically it's just going to be a steel plate here. These oblong holes are right where you're going to mount the compressor to. And then we've got brackets here that will attach, and this is actually going to allow us to mount all the way around the frame. So you've got these nice long U-bolts. We'll show you exactly how that goes together in a minute, but really nice option for not having to modify your vehicle at all. We talked about the filter. That's going to go in here. We're going to use the small fitting there. Runs through our black tube right up to our filtered inlet. That way we're going to get nice clean air coming into our compressor. As it comes out of our compressor, it's going to run through our Airline, and that's going to go up to the front of the vehicle where we're going to have our gauge pack. Now we've got up and down. That's going to control our airbags using our switch. One of our compressor wires is going to run to our switch here. We'll have air that goes in, and then it'll monitor the air and we can set it to exactly what we want inside of the vehicle. This is an illuminated gauge, so it's really nice and convenient. You turn on your headlights, it lights up just like everything else. Now, this is a very important part of the system. This is our relay harness. It's fused where the battery is going to be connected. You can see it's labeled here, switch panel. So our white wire needs to go to one of the white wires on our switch panel. Our orange wire here is labeled compressor. And those are all going to go through a relay. You see our relays here. Now what this relay allows us to do is it allows us to control our compressor through our switch without having to run all of the power that the compressor is going to need through that switch. Likely that'll burn it up. So our relay allows us to use just a little bit of power to power a large item, such as our compressor there. Also, we're going to have all the hardware that we need, maybe a few zip ties you might need to bring in, and we will have one more T that we'll need to use to tie all of our airbags together. Now here's our gauge installed in the dashboard. As you can see, this gives us in-cab control of our airbag system. Rather than having to stop at a gas station, try to inflate or deflate our bags and get them right, we'll be able to see right here exactly what pressure our airbags are at. Even at nighttime, you can see we've got a nice lit gauge there. It's really going to help out. And it just gives us quick options here as far as inflating, and then we can also deflate our bags to make sure we have it in the optimal setting. The great thing about using the heavy-duty compressor, it actually fills up the airbags pretty quickly. That's one of the negatives I feel about the standard duty compressors, is that they won't fill the bags up quickly for you. Now in smaller applications or in small regular light duty pickups or SUVs, standard duty compressors might work out fine. But once we get up into something like this, we're getting 8 lugs on our wheels or bigger trucks, bigger SUVs, really the heavy duty compressor is the way we're going to want to go. Now I'm going to take the opportunity with our compressor out here to go ahead and mount it to our plate. It's going to take our bolt with a flat washer on it. It's going to pass through our plate, and then on the back side here we're going to add on another flat washer and our nylon lock nut. Now we're going to get our bolts tightened down here. We just want to tighten this down enough to where we bring out any slack. We want to let this rubber isolator do its job so our compressor isn't going to be transferring any vibration into the vehicle. Nice and secure there. Now we want to take a couple of our locking flange nuts. These come with our compressor mount kit. And I'm just going to tighten these down just to take the slack out. I'm not going to tighten them all the way down just yet. Now we'll grab 4 more of our nuts and our long U-bolts here, and we'll head into the truck. Now if we come right here to where our cab and our bed meet, we've got a nice clean spot of frame rail here. We're going to use this area and just tuck our compressor in right in behind it here. Looks like we're going to have good clearance there, so now we'll just bring our U-bolts around the back side. Now I'm going to grab our relay harness here. We want to bring the orange wire, which says Comp Plus, right back to where our compressor is. Now they give us just a kind of a push to fit fitting here, which is okay, but that will open you up for a little bit of moisture. So you'll want to either use some silicone to seal that up, or pick up part number DW05745. This is going to offer us a heat shrink butt connector. Now that style of connector is going to give us superior moisture resistance, so we won't have to worry so much about the elements getting into our wiring and causing corrosion. So I'm going to cut the connectors it came with off. I'm going to strip back both ends of my wire. We'll replace the connector it came with there with our heat shrink connector just by placing it on, then crimping it down. And then we can use a heat gun or a little mini torch, or what we're going to use here is just a lighter. And we want to put enough heat on there to shrink it down. We don't want it to turn colors or anything. But you can see how it starts to shrink down there. And then once it's tightened down fully, you see a little kind of like some gel that comes out of the end there. That's a glue. So that's going to prevent any moisture from getting in there at all. Really gives us a nice connection. Now I'm going to find an appropriate place where we won't have to worry about any wires or anything. I'm going to make a small pilot hole, and then we're going to use a self-tapping screw to secure our ground to our frame. Okay, now we can get our ring terminal lined up with our hole. We're going to place in one of the self-tapping screws. And then as we go along, we're going to use the supplied zip ties, but we want to make sure we keep all of our wires nice and secured. Now our relay, we want to be sure that we mount that. You see it's got a nice little tab in it there. So we're going to go right up here on the frame, just up there a little higher. We'll secure this the same way we did our ground. All right, now our red wire, it's going to continue to run up towards the battery. Our orange wire we're done with here, and our white wire, it's going to cross over to the driver's side. So let's take care of getting our orange wire bundled up. Let's keep working our way forward up our passenger side frame rail here with our power wire. This is going to run to the positive side of our battery. Now what I'm going to do is just kind of direct my wire right up above the shock there. If your hood's open, you can see a little bit of air kind of poking in through there. Now we're going to take, this is just a magnetic tool that we use here, but also a coat hanger will work good. You just want to make a little hook in it. Then you want to reach down there, grab your wire and pull it on up to you. And then we'll want to place a zip tie on it to anchor it out. All right, once we've got that trimmed up, Need to pull the pre-strip off the end of our fuse holder there. We're going to add on a ring terminal. So what we need to do is just back off that nut. That's going to take a 10mm socket. Place that right down on top. Then we'll replace our nut. We use a zip tie now to secure off our fuse holder. Now as we make our connection, we just want to make sure that we have our fuse out of the holder. Then we're going to use that provided 25 amp fuse to put in as one of our last steps. Now right above where we mounted our relay here, there's a kind of a cross member that goes all the way across. We want to run our Airline into our driver's side floorboard, so this is really the only good area to cross over that's in front of our compressor before we start getting up closer to the significant, or more significant at least, heat sources. So I'm gonna go right above that. You can kind of see this little drop down here. Now what I want to do is just feed through the majority of the Airline. Leaving just a little bit on the side here. I'm gonna run that right back here towards my compressor. Our fitting's just gonna thread in the end on the upper portion of the compressor there. And then we wanna thread that in to where it fully engages that thread sealant. We don't wanna have to worry about any kind of leaking. Once that's in nice and secure, we can take our little tube cutter. This is part number F9009. It's just really important to get a very clean, flush cut at the end of our hose. That's gonna give us a really good seal. If it's crooked, if there's an issue, that's gonna be the first place you're gonna wanna look at your push to connect fittings there. We'll continue to secure our Airline as we come across here. As you can see, we've just about run out of the red zip ties that come with the kit, so we've switched over and we're just using some we had in the shop. Now my white wire here, this is going to the switch panel, which is also where I'm running this Airline to. So we can get those kind of connected together there and take them over pretty similar paths there. Even use one to secure the other one. Now we're going to continue running up right underneath basically the driver's seats where we'll be going into the vehicle. I'll show you the grommet in just a second. Now what we're going to do is remove this scuff panel and also this little kick panel here. That's going to allow us access underneath our carpet. So usually they'll just pop up. If it tries to be stubborn, you can go underneath that with a little screwdriver or a trim panel removal tool. Now we can come right in front. We want to lift kind of up, which is going to bring that bottom out towards us just a little bit. Get one little clip down here we separate. Then you can see around the front here, little push pin fasteners. Just a matter of pulling out on that. And then right up here, there's going to be one more. Kind of got to pull your hood latch open. And you hear that last one click right up there at the top. So you got this one and this one, then the push pin fastener that goes through there. Now if we lift up slightly on our carpet, we'll be able to reach right underneath here and we can feel the top of that grommet. It'll be located about right there. All right, now we just want to cut a little slit in there. That's going to allow us to pass our lines through. And then I've just got an extra piece of Airline tubing I'm going to use here. Poke it right down through that grommet. Now I'm going to take my red Airline, remember this is the one coming up from our compressor, and we'll take our white wire from our relay. I'm going to pass them up through that same grommet hole. Now basically I'm just going to pull through all my white wire. I'm going to pull through my red Airline tubing here. And then I just want to loop this up all the way around our carpeting here. Then once we have that positioned, ultimately what I'm looking for is for it to come through our grommet, run right up through here on our carpet, and then make its loop back around where we'll be able to attach it to our gauge panel. All right, now we're gonna leave ourselves plenty of airline up here. But we're gonna snip it off, and then I'm gonna attach this end to that extra piece of hose that I put in, and we'll use that as a pull wire so we can pull it back down through. This is gonna wind up running from the back of our gauge down to our bags. Now we want to find a suitable place to mount our gauge. Some guys will bring it up here, kind of bring it through this dash panel. What I'm going to do is use this, there's a nice solid metal strip. It runs right down here. Right here there's a little Christmas tree fastener that's been pushed through. There's a wire loom that runs just on the top of it here. So we want to remove that fastener to give us some room with that wire loom so we can move it up just a little bit. All right, that should give us the room we need there. Our switch panel up. I'm going to mark that metal there where our holes need to be for our bolts to pass through. Now we're going to use a drill and just drill out those hole locations. Just want to be sure that we're mindful of that wiring harness that runs in behind there. We don't want to do any damage to that. Now we can take the 2 bolts that are provided with our kit. Those have the Phillips head on it. I'm going to place those down through our holes we created. Now it's going to be a little bit harder to secure them this way, but with that wire loom sitting right on top of it, I don't want these bolts sticking up there to where it can make contact. I want the heads of the bolts to where they're nice and smooth up there. Let's go ahead and get our gauge hooked up. Now with the black wires that come off of the back, one of these needs to go to a ground and one of these needs to go to a running light circuit. So a wire that becomes live only when the running lights in the vehicle are on. That's going to illuminate our gauge. For our white wires, the one located directly underneath this air fitting also needs to go to ground. And the other one, the one that's closer to the outside here, that's going to go to the wire that came in from our relay. I know both of these need to be grounded, so instead of running 2 wires, I'm going to splice these together here. Twist that together. And then I'm going to use one of part number DW05744. That'll allow us to use, again, just 1 wire to go get ground for both of our circuits here. Then we've got one of part number DW05743. We're going to use for this diameter wire. Now for our running light wire here, it's going to be pre-stripped, but we're going to strip it back just a little bit further. It's also going to get one of our DW05743s. Then we can use the piece of white wire that we got off that relay that we trimmed off under here. And that should give us the length we need to go over and make our connection for our running light. Now, in our install, to get our gauge mounted here, we could find a ground somewhere right over here, but there's a really good factory ground that's right here. So we're going to use a little bit longer piece of wire. This is part number 16-1-1, and we're using 3 feet of it. That's going to go on the other side of our butt connector here. Now let's take care of shrinking down our butt connectors. Now it's time to hook up our airlines here. We want to leave ourselves a little bit of slack in case we need to make any adjustment. But we're going to bring the one that comes from the compressor, just like before, a nice clean cut. So we need to get that slid right on that barbed fitting on the back of the switch. All right, once that's seated firmly, the other one is going to go right here. That's the output. Now once we've got that slid up on our bolts, we're going to place on a flat washer and one of our nylon lock nuts. And once we get close to having it snug, I just like to line my gauge panel up with the edge of the dashboard there, and then we'll snug it down. All right, now we're gonna pull out our little side panel here. Typically starting at the bottom, you can get a little bit of a crack, and then you just wanna use a screwdriver or a trim tool. You'll see that's gonna pop out. Kind of rotate it. There's a little lip there. That lip kind of goes in behind there, so you just want to make sure you get it out of there. Set it aside. And we're going to bring our wires over this direction. Just want to feel like here you've got your onboard diagnostic port. Just kind of go up and over that stuff. That's going to give us good support for those wires. So just bring them right over this way. I'm going to deal with my ground wire first, so I'm going to get my switch wire out of the way, or my power wire out of the way. Then there's a little bracket here for the emergency brake. I'm going to feed my wire in behind that bracket. You can see it's going to come out down here. That's going to keep it away from any moving parts, which is important. Now we'll want to zip tie this off just to make sure that we don't have any movement that we don't want. Make sure we get all of our slack out of there. Now we're ready to trim off our ground wire here. We want to strip it back and add on a ring terminal. Now we can remove that bolt right there. So we'll need a 8mm ratchet or wrench for. We're going to put our ring terminal right on the bolt. And we can put that right back into position there. Now the last wire we have to connect is our illumination wire for our gauge. Now this is going to go to a running light ignition source, like we said, something that'll come on when the running lights are on. The switch is right here. I want to get into the wiring that's just on the back side of it, so we'll have to pop this panel off in order to do that. Now, it's a pretty easy process. First thing we need to do is remove this lower panel. You can start right at the bottom by pulling out. And then with the 7mm socket, we'll need to take out this bolt that's right here. Now we should be able to pull out on that gently and just kind of relieve a few clips that run up through there. And now we want to pull out slightly and also up on our gray panel here. That's going to give us the room we'll need to get in here behind it, test out our wiring. Go into the running light position and see where we've got power. All right, now that's the signal we're looking for. As soon as we turn on our running lights, that comes on. If we turn them off, it goes off. So that's good. It's going to be the dark purple wire that's got a gray strip. So I'm just going to splice that wire, strip back both ends of it. Bring our wire up as well. Now what I'm going to do is just twist the factory wire and our compressor wire together and secure them together using the butt connector. It's going to make our splice for us right there. Other side, I'm going to strip back a little bit farther than normal. I'm going to double that wire up. That's going to give us a good purchase with our butt connector here. We can get this shrink down. Now we'll put our panel back into position there. Just want to turn on our parking lights, make sure our gauge light comes on. Perfect. Our lower panel back in here. We can get our side panel put back in here. And we can also replace our kick panel here and also the scuff panel. Now our airline that comes out from our switch panel, we're gonna run back to our airbags. We're gonna head towards the driver's side airbag first. So I'm gonna use this frame rail, just kind of run across there, kind of toward the back. And then just like before, we want to use plenty of zip ties. All right, now we want to bring our line back here to the approximate length we're going to need and get a nice flush cut put on it. We're also going to cut the line for our airbags. You want to have as little pressure as possible in these so they don't make too much racket. Now we're going to place in our T that's provided. You want to slide these in. You'll feel a little click and then you want to feel that big click. That's going to help us to be sure that we've got a good tight seal there. All right, then the line from our airbag will come in and we'll be set. Now we're gonna also have to set our line to cross over and pick up our other airbags so our compressor will operate, both of them. We're gonna go right over this rail here. This seems to be a really nice spot. We can get it secured off. We won't have to worry about it. So I'm gonna split my line right up here. Just like before, I'm gonna add in my T. We'll bring this tubing up and over our, just kind of like the spare tire kit where it goes up there and push it in firmly into our T. Now we'll just split our other airline there and we can put a T over there. That'll have everything connected. Now we'll push our fitting in place here. And then just use a couple of zip ties to secure our line. Now we're gonna get our filter installed on our compressor. So we wanna pull out this kind of a rubber cap that fits in there. And into that, we're gonna thread our barbed fitting. Once we've got that in there securely, we'll grab the black hose that came with our compressor kit. We want to slide that over. I'm going to route it right along with that tube there. Then I'm going to go over our fender support, and right up here there's a little flange that I've drilled 2 holes in, one here and one here. We're going to use those 2 holes to zip tie our filter up and out of the way. Now the coils are good. That's going to give us a spot in case we were to get any moisture or anything like that in there, that can be kind of stored or keep it from getting to our compressor. Now we want to take our 20 amp fuse and slide it in our fuse holder here and cap that off. That'll allow us to test out our compressor as well as our airbags at the same time. Now to test the system, we'll simply press up on our switch. We should hear our compressor engage. And then as we hold that down, we're slowly gonna see our pressure dial move up. And now we'll spray down our fittings here. And what we're gonna look for are little bubbles to form. There'll be a bunch of little bubbles and they kind of get bigger as they go. So just kind of keep an eye on it, spray down all of our connection points. And that's going to complete our installation of the Firestone Air Command. This is our heavy-duty single-function compressor with analog gauge. Part number F2097 on our 2015 Ford F350.
Click the link below to shop, learn more, or visit us at eTrailer.com.